Hello and welcome to another episode of A Coffee with Chris, the social media show that helps you create impact. As always, brought to you in association with our charity partners, 𝗖𝗵𝗄𝗲, who help local people affected by cancer, and Blue Bear Coffee, replacing your business's coffee to help children that have experienced human trafficking. Today, I have been sipping, as always, too much on their Indonesia blend. It is absolutely delicious, and you can pick up a bag from their coffee shop on Toomland or online. And of course, as always, this show is proudly sponsored by some brilliant local businesses: Oliver Hill from Hill Coaching Company, Limitless Film and Media, Mindset HR, and Wingfield Consultants. That's the formalities out of the way. Welcome to today's guest, David Lloyd, founder and creative director, and Jodie Cole, head of design at 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘀. 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘀, for those of you that don't know, these guys find the simple naked truth that makes brands connect with people and use crafted creativity to take them from, and I love this line, local to legendary. David, let's kick off with the why from yourself, sir. You talk about finding the simple naked truth in branding. What does that actually mean, and why is it important for marketing success for business leaders out there?
Really simply, it's kind of what is absolutely unique about you. There's so many different awesome businesses out there in Norfolk. As you know, we're here to promote them, to help show them off. And finding the naked truth is finding what makes you tick, who you are. What is it that's unique about you that makes you different from everybody else, from your competition? And that we then use those skills that we have in design, in marketing, to help show those off. I think marketing success is about being unique. It is about finding your purpose. But more often than not, and I guess one of the stories I've got from the past is the clients that come to us, and some of them have said, there was a time where people said, can you make us look like Innocent? Smoothies. That was a real big one in the branding world, because these are beautiful, great brands. Apple being another one. Those are the two main sort of big, super brands that people want to kind of aspire to look like, to be like, to sound like. So I think part of our local to legendary is not sort of taking the local coffee shop and turning them into Starbucks, but it's knowing that they can have the same tools and the same assets that are able to grow them and, show them off. So yeah, that's kind of the story behind our purpose, really.
I love that. What a great way of kicking things off. I mean, the why couldn't be any more obvious there. Jodie, without making you sound old, nearly 2 decades in design now, I believe. How has the role of graphic design and marketing evolved, especially with the surge in social media into your lovely disrupted world?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think it was in the past, as perhaps was always seen as a bit of an add-on, and definitely in today's modern world, it's become a really central thing to brand strategy. There's so much to it. And equally, like, design used to just be for print. And obviously, as you say, it's gone right into the digital world now. And that means that everything that we design has to adapt to so many different platforms. It's incredible, really, the types of things that you have to design brands for. And I think, whereas it was once seen as a bit of an add-on and a bit of an extra nice thing to have, it's now kind of vital to telling a brand story and connecting with an audience. It's all about creating an emotion, because that's how you make a brand more memorable, really. And equally, in today's world, everything is so much more data driven as well. And you can use a lot of data from social media to see how you're connecting with the audience and things like that as well, which does feed back into design sometimes.
Yeah, with you, Jodie. So much goodness in that. These two are just in bed with each other, so to speak. They really are, aren't they? I think, social with crap design doesn't work, and vice versa. Design without social doesn't really accelerate into this kind of bigger, wider digital world that was once just print. And David, I'm so conscious of the fact that so many SME leaders are watching this now, watching this back, listening back, etc., and they don't know where the blooming heck to start. And so, where should they start? Should they start with the sexy, nice, fluffy visual stuff, or strategy, or both? Or how would you start this process from going to local to legendary via effective dynamic design?
Yeah, it is a really good question, and it is often a challenging thought, but to keep it quite simple again, which is what we try and do, it's the naked philosophy. I think it starts off it starts off with the discovery. It's understanding who you are. You know, again, going back to that, you know, what is unique about you? And then we go from the, so that's like the discovery part. Then we go to the define part, you know, so let's try and put that together into some words. Let's create a story. Let's create a narrative. You know, how does that sound? We're looking at things like the tone of voice. You know, are you high end? Are you, you know, do you need to be getting things out quicker and cheaper? You know, where do you sit on that kind of matrix, I guess? And then design is sort of the third part along. That is when the sort of the visual and the visual storytelling, you know, using things like typography to be able to help tell that story, tell that narrative, understanding who you are, where you position yourself. So it's definitely the first part rather than the second part. I would have design definitely second, strategy first. Yeah, without doubt.
That's really interesting to hear, and it leads me nicely on, Jodie, to talking about something that might make you swear, maybe. So I'm about to drop the Canva grenade into the conversation. Many, and I empathise with them, right? And you know, we use Canva on some of our clients and stuff too, and you know, many small businesses, that's the way they DIY their own graphics. You know, what would be one thing you would say to those people that are currently using that to kind of level up from just, you know, generic Canva stuff to something like that you know, that Naked would produce?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think I mean, obviously it depends on the budgets of what clients have got, but in an ideal world, at least try and get a designer involved with helping you to set up the fundamentals of a brand. So that's your, you know, your logo, your color palette, your typefaces and things like that. And maybe if you like a photography style and some icons to use, anything like that. So you've got a bit of a base to start from, and that you can always kind of go back to. Literally just this morning, I've actually been working on a brand toolkit in Canva for a client. So it's a bit of a swear word, but it is the way the world is now, and it's what a lot of our clients use. And there's no problem with that at all. So yeah, make sure you've got a brand kit set up essentially. And then the other thing as well is I think it's to keep it simple when you're designing, or KISS as they call it, keep it simple, stupid. It sort of comes back to making sure that you don't overcomplicate things. You know, it's that analogy of throwing loads of tennis balls and which one's going to land in the glass. You know, you can't if you throw everything at a social media graphic design post, for instance, you know, people really aren't going to read it. It needs to be bold, simple, and also a really long answer, sorry, but also think about who's going to read your post as well. You know, they don't need to see loads of stuff on the post, just one simple message.
Yes. That's again, brilliant stuff there, Joe. So much wisdom. Brand toolkit. My God, how many businesses don't have a brand toolkit still in 2025? It blows my mind. Keeping it simple and saying just one message and keeping that really easy for people to understand. I think that's almost like seemingly for some reason that like quite an unsexy thing to say. Like people almost, you know, think of that quite badly. I'm a huge advocate of that, Jodie, especially when social is so fast moving, right? And you want to quickly grab attention and portray a message to convert. Essentially, I think that it's absolutely brilliant, and it's really reassuring to hear, Jodie, that, you know, there's agencies out there like yourself that say, no, hey, look, you know, we understand that, you know, you need to be able to grab and go in your world, and so we can work with a tool like Canva. Of course, it's not optimal, but at the same time, if you're at that chicken and egg budget scenario, I think that's really reassuring to hear. So good for you guys. David, I want to move on now to the title of this podcast, which is all about, you know, making sure that your brand is visually unforgettable. How does a small business realistically achieve this? Is it the logo? Is it the colors? Is it something deeper than that?
Yeah. How long have we got? I think it's to do with making a connection. We need to make a connection, an emotional connection. We always talk about it in design. And I suppose with social media, there's probably a little bit more of an advertising side to it, because it's more about instant connection, instant postings. You know, you've got your postings and you've got your reels, you've got your stories and stuff like that, and combining the two. So for me, it's all about making that emotional connection. I think so. I've got a prop. Am I allowed to show you my prop? Is that right?
I think this is now the second time we've had a prop on a Coffee with Chris. So let's see what you've got, David.
This is one of our posts. This is one of our posters from the studio.
Okay.
And can you see that? It's probably it's got a bit of reflection in the light. So it's Jaws. That's probably backwards on there. I don't know.
No, it's great.
It's the Jaws poster. And I'll put it back. It's quite big. There's so many lessons, in all seriousness, there's so many lessons to learn from things like that where you dig into the past. So first of all, it's about inspiring, what sort of connection do I want to create? What to connect with somebody? So the Jaws poster, really, really simple. You've got a shark at the bottom, okay? You've got a lady swimming on top, and you've got this big, bold font, really, really simple elements. You know that that's not going to end particularly well, don't you? At the end of the day, that is not going to, it's going to conjure up one thing. Back in the day, more often than not, design really borrows from previous decades to look for its inspiration to move forward. I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here again and say possibly don't look at what everybody else is doing on social media, because the danger is you end up looking like everybody else. And that is how you become massively unforgettable. Boring is possibly, visually boring is possibly the worst thing. And I'm not here to sort of really critique people's brands and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is that look at where you can borrow from. So Jaws is a great example because it conjured up this idea of fear so much, and you have a poster, which is like your post, your sort of single post. And, you could have gone paddling in the sea off Great Yarmouth in 1980, having seen that film, and you would have been worried about a great white shark popping up. So yeah, things like that. Also, you might think, oh, that might be a bad example because that's a big budget movie, but the budget was spent on the shark, which for all intents and purposes was actually really rubbish. They could never get it to work. So Spielberg decided that there'll be sort of more fear made, more emotional connection by not showing the creature at all, but hinting at something being there. So making it work a little bit harder with less budget, and that made it probably the best creature film of all time. Things like the music and stuff. It's just all these little elements that kind of come together. And then you have the trailer. The trailer's like the reel. You're adding music, you're adding bits and pieces into it just to make everything stand out and come together as part of the brand, I suppose.
So I think what I'm hearing there, David, correct me if I'm wrong, I think what I'm hearing is businesses and brands, whoever they are, wherever they are, they need to try to bring emotion and translate emotion into their messaging to make them unforgettable. But to kind of positively challenge you there, and maybe Jodie, you want to chime in on this as well. How does, say, for example, I'm going to put you on the spot. How does, say, for example, like a more traditionally, I'm going to be brave here, boring business, such as someone in the world of accountancy or maybe a lawyer firm, a legal firm, how can they bring emotion into their design to make them unforgettable on social media?
I would say it's all about human-centric design. It's actually, at the end of the day, whatever service or business you're in, you're doing it for human beings, and everybody can connect to that human touch and that human element. So it's bringing everything right back down to those basics. And what are those like little tiny pain points that you're fixing for your customers? And it's then creating a campaign or messaging or whatever around that stuff, because that's where the emotion is. That's what people can really connect with, and oh yeah, they can fix that for me, and you can connect and understand and put your sort of self in those shoes a little bit, and it just sort of sings to them, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. No, go David, come on.
Well, all I was going to say was, just following on from Jodie's point, and, it's 100% right. I think it's a sense of, you've got your B2B and B2C, but you're just dealing with humans at the end of the day. Everybody is a human being. Yeah. It's like you put on a suit and something changes and I'm suddenly in business world. You're a human being and you have emotional connection. And it's the best way. You can find that emotion, find the human element of it. Keep it simple, like Jodie said, find something unique and interesting about you with your strategy, and all these things can come together.
I love that message, guys. Like humanizing your brand more, and that's how you can make yourself, visually unforgettable on social. Selfishly from a social media perspective, I can chime in on that and say that's always the stuff that performs the best on all of these platforms as well. And even better if you are one of those more, traditionally known boring industries or boring businesses, right? Because if you are then chalk and cheesing it, I'd like to say, and you're a legal firm, but then there's lots of people and there's human emotions going on within your content, it performs so much better. So there's definitely, it's becoming more well known now that people need to humanize their brands to be unforgettable. But I think that's a really good bit of wisdom there, guys. David, I know beforehand we briefly spoke off air about a client that you took from local to legendary. I'm really interested to hear about that, because this was through effective design, which then that business then ran on social media. So could you take us through the story there?
Yeah, so I would say that in terms of the status that they have, I would say they were sort of probably more along the sort of local legends than the locals, I suppose, anyway. So, we were really fortunate to work with Dipple and Conway, who are really well-known local brand. And local to legendary is sort of in the eye of the beholder, really. Like it's understanding what's, one of the questions we ask at the start of every project is, what does success look like? So it's understanding what their challenges are and what you're going to be measured on. So that is often how you can take them from one place to the next. And for them, it was an integration of audiology, so hearing services, into their glasses and optical services, and how we could take a brand, and this was the thing, a brand that's been established, I think it was since 1916, so over 100 years, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is it's something to be really proud that we asked to work on, but also you've got to be very careful with it as well. And for us, it was understanding who the customer was, how Dipple and Conway sort of position themselves as probably one of the premier optical brands within Norfolk, as probably the optical premier brand in Norfolk. And so it's kind of taking those elements, looking what you're going to do with it. Now the obvious thing for us would have been to, they had the glasses icon over the top of some wording, they've got the beautiful glasses statue on the side of the building in Castle Street in Norwich, and it was like, okay, we need to find some way of putting some ears on here, or finding some, because that might have been, a route to go. So we looked at that route, and you could end up looking like one of those comedy masks. You just need a little tash on it or something like that. And actually, for us, it was more of a bold thing. So it was removing the glasses completely and knowing that they have that status. And let's really push that on and get rid of it completely. So there was no glasses, and there was no like ears or hearing icons either. And it was just putting the wording underneath the beautiful font that we found, that kind of gave that feeling of high end, of quality. Because what they're dealing here with is like absolute, premium optical equipment that you're going to get great treatment here. And I think for us, it was just like marrying that all together, but also then seeing that the original, the really old science, it was really cool to dip into the archive of a company that's got 100-year-old, optical archive, and see the original sign was purely just the words with a little tiny small and. So we sort of borrowed it from there and used the past to help sort of create the future. And then we give them all the elements, and we create all these elements from all these things. And like, as Jodie said earlier, we then create like a look and a visual so they can go away and be playful. They have an in-house designer. They have a team that works on their social media, so that they can put all these things together and be playful and have fun with it. And they can then take their own story forward.
And that's not to say as well that it makes it sound like we just completely disregarded their glasses icon as part of their like graphical design system and their icons and everything like that. Again, looking back into their heritage and all of the like old, they've got this massive room with like loads of equipment, and it's amazing, like all their old stuff. But we took references from some of the old equipment to create these like circular graphics, and some of them you know, if you go online and you'll see that like some of the animations, some of them pulse for noises, and some of them are circles which kind of nod to the glasses icon that they used to have. So it's not that we just completely disregarded it, because that would be the worst thing to do. It was just bringing that in, but using it in a way that could carry them on into the future, really.
You guys did a brilliant job on that, genuinely. I saw it. I saw the launch of it. I was very, very impressed. I think there's such a fine balance to be had, isn't there? You know, there's, you know, I'll call them social media cowboys that come in and they go, well, we just need to modernize everything and do away with the past. And I love your quote, David, about, you know, borrowing from the past to create the future and keeping that established heritage, that legacy, and bringing it into this modern social media era. And they've disseminated that incredibly effectively throughout their social. I love their seasonal stuff as well. So a great example there. Jodie, I want to ask you about the future now, and what are the trends? I know it's quite difficult to predict the future. I'm asking you to get your crystal ball out, if you will, and talk to me about, you know, what are the kind of design trends that you foresee businesses jumping on going forwards for their marketing on social? And let me again throw another grenade at you: AI.
Yes, thank you. Well, we can't, none of us can deny AI, can we, at the end of the day? And it is there. And I think it comes back to a little bit to what I was saying earlier. I think AI will always be a tool, but I don't think it can help us make that real human connection with things. In terms of where it's going in the future, moving image is becoming more and more the norm. Animation, video, all that sort of stuff. And I think all brands need to hop on that, really. People don't want to sit there and read loads of stuff. They want to watch something. And equally, I think it's about being bold and brave as well. You know, be a bit bolder, be a bit braver, make those messages simple but bold, just so to help them stand out and again become so that they're not forgettable.
I think, Jodie, that's like this. I think that's brilliant. So many people on social, it's like video, it's photo, it's, you know, the carousel stuff. I love the in-betweeny there, actually, which is moving images, right? I think, and especially animation, I think is a real area of potential for brands and businesses to dip into this year, to really stand out, because it's really unique, isn't it? And I know that, of course, they, you know, to do this effectively, they should lean on an agency like Naked to support them on that, genuinely. But I was reading Gary Vaynerchuk's new book the other day, and he was talking about the usage of having a character within your marketing, right? So, you know, Go Compare, etc. There's the Meerkat, etc., right? And that's something that you can develop through animated creative for your social. Am I on the right train of thinking there, Jodie?
Yeah, absolutely. You could do, for sure.
We have one downstairs. We have Naked Steve, the mannequin.
Yes.
I was chatting to you, I think, about, like, actually we should do a little video, like take a picture and then bring him to life. And we could, you know, we're talking about house music and clubbing for our downstairs room with our big naked neon sign feels like a club, and you could start dancing. Do you know, but it's fun, it's an engagement, it's an interaction, it's getting people thinking about it, yeah.
And you might get your content banned on social, depending on your character, bringing your character, your mascot to life. David, I want to ask you now about the biggest clangers with design for social. You know, what are the design for social things that you see and it just gives you the ick and you're like, oh my God, that's absolutely awful?
I heard somebody the other day, and I don't know if I totally agree with it, but I understand the sentiment. It's creating sort of social landfill, or gigabytes of landfill, which is just like not very interesting content. I mean, you know this better than anybody, and how it is to sort of not be like everyone else. Find who you are and your own personality, and find your personality in your design and your look and your feel. So like I say, tone of voice. It's really hard for us as designers sometimes talking about design, that we don't sound like complete, I don't know, you know, like design snobbery, and I don't want to. But it's just like, you know, just keeping stuff simple, crafting stuff, you know, simply. Like I said about Dipple and Conway, is finding the right font that expresses you. You know, what kind of message and pictures are you trying to build to your customers? And I think it's just as simple as that. Just don't be like everyone else. Find your own tone of voice, find your own personality. Mm-hmm. Don't posting stuff that constantly just going into, I'd say, the landfill bin.
I like the landfill line's good. Just to kind of get my magnifying glass out and zoom in on something there. And you two have both added this into the conversation through talking about the Dipple and Conway case study is how many brands and businesses on social media are using generic, just real basic font with all of their graphics. And that seems to be like, one area, Jodie, of latent potential for brands and businesses to really up their game in 2025, right?
Absolutely. I'm talking to a bit of a typography geek here anyway, so I do love a beautiful font. But yeah, it's really fundamental to people just think, oh, it's just a font, but it really isn't. It's another way to communicate your personality as a brand. Whether it's got serifs and little bits that stick out, or whether it's a really nice, simple, authoritative font, it can express so much, and it's really important to get it right.
Yeah.
I've also got an example. My second example I'm bringing to the party. Is that all right? Do you know Jaws poster earlier?
Yeah.
So this is like the modern incarnation of that, and I think it's very much so. The Meg with Jason Statham, and you can see what they've done to it. They've absolutely thrown everything at it, and it's lost any sort of emotion or connection or anything like that. It's generic. The idea of this film is to show off the fact that Jason Statham's in it, and that's all that matters. The shark that's about 20 times the size of Jaws is just totally secondary, almost tertiary. It's just there in the background, kicking about, looking slightly scary. But you're losing that kind of, it's looking like everybody else again. So with graphic designers, we have to bring this stuff along, don't we?
No, I love that. And for those of you that are listening back, please do check out our visual video format of a copy, YouTube, etc. And guys, I want to go to both of you on this one. Second from before last question, if that's okay, is I want from both of you, if I may, one piece of advice you wish businesses knew before they just splattered out everything on social media. I mean, David, why don't we start with you, sir?
I'll start with Jodie. I think she's better.
There's so many things, really, to be perfectly honest with you, but simply keep it consistent. I really think consistency is key. Especially if you've got that brand toolkit to work from, and you've got a key, like a core set of messages and things like that, keep to that, keep consistent with that, because that's the best way to build your brand awareness and to build those connections with your target audience, is just to keep that consistent message going out.
With you, David?
For me, yeah, I quite like, but this is me personally, I like stuff that's a bit bolder, a bit edgy, a bit something that stands out, quite vibrant, not, again, something that blends into the background. But let's show off your personality, but really, sometimes really amplify it. We've all got a story to tell. We've all got something to show off. We've all got expertise. And you often think, oh, no one's interested in that. But, just to show off your personality in a bolder, brighter way, I think.
Yeah, I think that both contributions there are fabulous, actually. I think there is just this is why I love these conversations, adding context to it, right? Because we're in this world of, when we're on social, we see a LinkedIn post, this is the blueprint, this is the way of doing things, this is how it has to be. And I think this added context here provides the insight that it is this constant balance, right? Because you want consistency on social, so it looks like a post from Naked, from Reeve Social Media, from Innocent, for example, from Dipple and Conway, more importantly than Innocent. Let's get rid of those guys from the conversation. They don't need the plug. At the same time, I do massively advocate, brands expressing their creativity more and, being brave with it. Gone are the days for, pretty grids on Instagram and things like that. Yes, it needs to be consistent, but we also have to, be ourselves and be authentic and humanized too, as you guys have said earlier.
I think I was going to say is, I think the thing is, we're designers, we love design, but I think the thing is to find something that's great design, that stands out, that's dynamic. Look anywhere for it. It's everywhere. Don't look in the obvious places. Like I say, maybe don't look on social media to start producing your next social media campaign. Go out for a walk. You never know what you're going to find. You could find something strange kicking about in a field that might kick off an idea that takes it, somewhere else. I'm trying to think if I've got an analogy for that at all. But I've got one of our favorite designers, Robert Brownjohn.
Yeah.
Who probably famous designers, a quote, famous designers like famous dentists, graphic designers like famous dentists. No one knows who they are. In every other field of design, there are famous people that but he was great. And he was giving a lecture on graphic design, I believe. This is a story. I might have like got this slightly wrong, but the premise is there, and it's a nice story anyway. So bear with me. But he was giving a lecture back in probably the 50s or 60s. It was in the 60s, a designer in the 50s and 60s. And he was going to give a lecture on graphic design using a projector. And a student, was late and walked in front of the projector. And as you can imagine, this projection went on this student's body, like the typography, the visual, and it just sparked an idea. And his next gig, one of his next gigs, was the was it From Russia with Love, title sequence for James Bond. And it was something completely accidental and just spotting something that created something. So I'm dipping into movies in the past a lot here, you'll see. but you know, just stuff like that. You might just see something that's interesting. Doing what everybody else is doing isn't necessarily that interesting. Find something unique and open your eyes for a different view. You know, it's quite, you know, there's a whole world of stuff out there.
That's so good, David. Take inspiration from things around you. I mean, earlier I was thinking that you were, you know, coming across the dog poo, being on your walk with the dog or something. I was like, oh my God, don't take inspiration. Obviously, Jodie, where can people do business with 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘀?
Where can they do business with us? Well,
touch.
Sorry, just banging the table with my knee. We love meeting people. We're all about relationships here at 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗄𝗏. So we'd love to, we do business. We like to go and meet clients and find out more about them. Equally, they're more than welcome to come and see us in our office, our lovely office here in Hingham.
With a nightclub downstairs.
Absolutely. Or indeed, you can have a look at all our work on our shiny new website as well.
Amazing. Guys, thank you so much for coming on A Coffee with Chris today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much to everyone watching live, watching back, listening back. Let us know your thoughts, feelings, and reflections on this episode. Hey, why not ask David and Jodie a question in the comments? Tag them, Naked, Jodie, David, me. We'll get back to you. And we look forward to helping you with your journey when it comes to dynamic design for your social media channels. Thank you once again for tuning in to A Coffee with Chris, and I'll see you this time next week for another one.